Hello, Yukon 28209. Yes, this is Candy Matson.
Eat that baby on the tree.
Fix those dolly tracks.
And look out for that cable, it's hot. Give me a hand with this thing.
Mallard, what in the name of the San Francisco Police Department are you doing up here on Telegraph Hill?
Working, Candy, in the name of the San Francisco Police Department.
Here, with these people who are making the movie?
Yeah, how about that? Me, a lieutenant in homicide, and I'm assigned to riding herd on these Hollywood characters.
Oh, it's better than murder.
I'll take murder any day. What are you doing around here?
I did some shopping at Speedy's this morning. While I was pinching the avocados, they told me that there was a Hollywood gang over by Coit Tower shooting some scenes for a movie with a San Francisco background.
They might just as well have stayed in the studio. They brought their own lawns, prop trees, fake bushes, the works. If it ever snowed up here on Telegraph Hill, they'd have brought some of that along, too.
You've never worked in Hollywood, Mallard. Only God can make a tree, but Hollywood presumes to improve on them. What are they doing now?
Just getting ready to shoot a scene, I think.
Oh.
They've been rehearsing it all morning.
What's it all about, do you know?
As far as I can figure, it's a story about San Francisco right after the gold rush. Look at all the costumes.
Very authentic. Looks like they'd been shipped around the horn. By the way, Mallard, do you know who's in the picture?
Some lush tomato named Cherry Dana and the Colorado boy, Buff Arnold.
Arnold? Did you say Buff Arnold?
That's right. Why?
Oh, forgive me, Mallard, dear. I knew Buff Arnold when he didn't have a place to house in. He professed to carry a very warm torch for me.
Aha. So that's why you so casually dropped by.
Oh.
An old flame, huh?
Don't be ridiculous. I didn't even know the guy was here, let alone still in pictures.
A likely story.
All right, quiet, please. Let's have quiet.
Quiet. This is a take.
All set, Mr. Dix. We're ready.
Good. Okay, Cherry, we'll roll this one, take a chance on it. Just remember to keep up against those trees. We don't want any shots of those modern buildings below the hill.
Oh, remember, Red. Where is my old pal, Buff Arnold, Mallard, dear?
By me. Judging by what's been going on, he's not in this particular scene.
All right, stand by. Roll 'em.
Scene 47, take 10.
Wait a minute. Cut. Oh, where's that coming from?
Out on the bay, Mr. Dix.
Fine thing, a present-day steamer whistle in an 1850 picture. Hold it. Ames.
Yes?
Let me know when the fool ship is tied up. We won't shoot the scene until it's docked.
Yes, sir.
Oh, darn it. I was hoping I'd see some action.
Well, I'll give you some action. Come on, walk around with me, Candy. I'll show you all the sights.
Sights like what, for instance, Mallard?
Oh, all the lights they brought up here. They must have 1,000 of them.
Undoubtedly to wash out the wrinkles on the leading lady's face.
And talk about props. It must have taken a whole freight train to get them up here.
Well, I have to have them.
For instance, look, right up there.
Where, Mallard?
Up there, above. In that tree. Hanging by their necks.
Oh, Mallard.
Don't jump like that, Cupcake. They're only dummies hanging from those ropes.
3 of them. They look so realistic.
I must admit, they really do. I understand they use them in a scene where they recreate a lynching in Portsmouth Square.
Recreate, did you say?
Yeah.
Maybe you're right. Take another look, honey bun. A good look at the one in the middle.
What are you trying to... Fry me for lard. That one in the middle is no dummy.
You're no dummy either, boy mine. How many times have you looked up there?
Just a couple of times, but the last time I looked, the one in the middle wasn't an ex-human being.
With that, I toss the whole thing in your lap, Mallard. I promote you back to homicide.
Oh, why didn't these characters stay in Hollywood?
'Tis a bit of a shame, isn't it? Cluttering up our lovely Telegraph Hill trees with gently swaying corpses. Come on, Mallard. Let's give the director a slight touch of apoplexy.
The National Broadcasting Company presents Candy Matson, Yukon 28209.
It's funny how sometimes when you're lazy and want to do nothing except live the good, pure life, trouble comes up and belts you over the head with a vengeance. Well, that's the way it happened to me. I'd just finished a deal that took me 3 weeks to crack. I made some good money out of it, banked it, and sat back to relax. When I heard about the movie company on location on the other side of the hill, my curiosity got the better of me. As of that moment, my contemplated relaxation was at an end. Period. Paragraph. I literally walked right into trouble because there was Mallard and cut down.
Okay, Mr. Dix, take a good look at him. You recognize the gent?
I recognize him, yes, but I don't know him. He was one of the extras we used in a scene yesterday.
Did he come up from Hollywood with you?
I'm pretty sure he didn't. I think he was hired here locally. Wait a minute. Who's this young lady? I don't want any outsiders in on this.
Don't fret your little head, Mr. Dix. Aside from being a material witness, she's a well-known private investigator.
Ah, excuse me, I didn't know.
That's all right. No need to apologize. Some of my best friends are movie directors.
Who would keep the roster on your personnel?
My assistant, Bill Ames.
Is he around?
Well, I'm right here, Lieutenant.
Oh, good. Can you give us any dope on this fellow?
Oh, golly, I'm afraid not. I've seen him, but I wouldn't know his name from Adam.
How about the payroll? When do you pay off the extras?
Ah, that's a thought.
We pay off at 5 o'clock tonight.
Why don't we come back then, Mallard? We can check off the names against the pay vouchers. There's one thing extras like to do, and that's get paid. The name that doesn't show up is our friend the corpse.
Okay, we'll let it go like that. What do you pay off?
Room 873, Montfair Hotel.
Well, make sure everybody's there, unless they want a little trouble thrown at them. I'm sorry, Mr. Dix. You can go on with your shooting now.
No more today. It's too unnerving. Ames, knock it off. Call will be for 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, sharp.
Right, Chief. Break it up, everybody. 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, in costumes, and that means 8 o'clock, understand? Morning.
You mind waiting here for a moment, Candy? I want to put in a call to the coroner's office for a wagon.
Sure, that's all right. Go ahead.
Good. It'll only be a few minutes.
Mr. Dix, pardon me.
Yes?
Can you tell me where Buff Arnold is staying?
What do you want with Buff Arnold, young lady?
I used to know him when he was playing bit parts in Hollywood.
Oh. Did you work in Hollywood?
I did a little time down there, sitting around in agents' offices.
You know, you're a sharp little cookie. Say, all of a sudden I've got an idea.
I'll bet.
No. On the level, believe me. I have a small part coming up that'd fit you to a T. Good-looking gal, wise, supposed to work in her father's store selling supplies to the miners. Can you act at all?
I used to shoot a fairly sharp mess of dialogue.
Do you live close by?
Right over there, 1 block. Penthouse on the top.
All the better. As soon as your policeman friend removes the deceased there, why don't we go over to your place and look at the script?
You know something? I've got an idea that's the idea you had the idea about. Okay, I'll look at the script. But for your information, Mr. Dix, I'm interested only in playing a part in your picture. Mallard came back, and I told him what had developed with Dix. He shot me a look that had more question marks in it than a government income tax form. I assured him I could handle the situation, and he left with the body, still clad in its 49er prospector's outfit. Dix issued some final orders, took me by the arm, and we strolled over to my place.
Charming, but positively charming.
Thank you.
What a gorgeous view. How long have you lived here, Miss... Oh, now, isn't that silly? I don't even know your name.
Matson. Candy Matson.
Candy Matson. Never have I heard a name match a personality so completely. I'm Reginald Dix. Just call me Reg.
As you say, Reg. Would you like a drink?
Oh, splendid. Soda highball?
I think I can scrape one together.
This is absolutely enchanting. I'm going to ask to make all my pictures in San Francisco from now on.
I don't think you'd go wrong. Of course, it'd be a little rough if you were making a picture with an Indian background and needed shots of the Taj Mahal and the Himalayas.
Oh, simple. I'd change it to the Ferry Building in Twin Peaks.
Very good. Here you are, Reg.
Thank you. I can use this after that messy discovery up there on that tree. Well, here's to crime.
That's a charming toast. Now then, about this part you were speaking of, I don't even belong to the Screen Actors Guild anymore.
Oh, a mere detail. I'll call the studio tonight and have them arrange your membership.
As simple as that. You know, I think if some of your bright boys got together, you could win the war in Korea without half trying.
Let's not be snide, my dear.
Oh, excuse me a moment. Someone at the door.
Certainly. Whoever it is, though, send them away.
Yes, master.
Hi.
Hi. Well, now that we've established our highs, is there something I can do for you?
I'm Cherry Dana. Is Mr. Dix here?
Oh, why, yes. Would you wait here, please?
I will not wait here. I want in.
Now, just a minute.
There you are, Ed. You have a short memory, haven't you?
Cherry, what are you doing here? I'm having a conference.
So I see.
I hate to mention it, but this happens to be a private home, Miss Dana. I'll have to ask you to leave.
Don't be boring. You lured my director up here, and I'm going to see that some little local wench doesn't put the squeeze play on him.
Why, you pampered brat. Get out of here right now, or I'll show you how a local wench can back up words with action.
Oh, now hold on here, both of you. Cherry, I resent this intrusion just as much as Miss Matson does, I'm sure.
I'll bet. What about me? You said you were going to drive me back to the hotel.
Very well, it slipped my mind. Oh, I'm sorry, Candy. I dislike scenes of this sort. We'll discuss our business later.
Good. I find now that I'm extremely interested. Good afternoon, Miss Dana. I'll see you later. I was so mad I was boiling. If I'd been a thermometer, quicksilver would have been streaming out of my ears. I did the most natural thing, took a shower, and little by little I simmered down. Actors and actresses are like anybody else. Most of them are darn nice people just trying to make a living, but one ham like Cherry Dana can ruin the picture. Just as I was getting dressed, the ferry building siren blew its top, indicating 4:30. I had to step on it if I was going to be at the Montfair at 5 in time for the payroll sequence with the extras. So I stepped on it and found myself in a minor mob scene outside room 873 at the Montfair Hotel. Mallard spotted me, grabbed me by the arm, and took me inside the room.
I really didn't expect to see you, Candy.
Why not?
I thought perhaps you were discussing contract terms with Dix by now. Big Hollywood star and all that.
Oh, Mallard, cut it out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I call out your names, step up fast and sign the voucher. Anderson, Robert. Apperson, Lou.
Yeah.
Bennett, Bert. Beverly.
I studied the faces as they stepped by the cashier's table set up in the room. They were all types. Anyone could have been a villain, a dance hall girl, a hero, an ingenue, or just plain extra. The roll call droned on in the background. The whole thing took about 10 minutes. And suddenly we were alone. Ames, the assistant director, the girl who had done the actual paying, Mallard, and myself.
Well, that's it.
Who's missing, Ames?
You're in for a bit of a shock.
How do you mean?
Nobody's missing. Everybody listed on our payroll checked in and was paid off.
What?
That's right.
Did you recognize every person who had been paid off?
I'm pretty sure I did.
Well, this is a fine kettle of nothing. We have an extra who's working in the picture, and yet he isn't. So he ends up hanging by his neck from a tree on Telegraph Hill. Who was the Joker?
The Joker, the one you can play wild. Are you sure they're all paid?
Well, positive. Double-checked with their guild cards and signatures.
Well, isn't this cute?
Oh, excuse me, please. Hello? Yes, this is Ames. Oh, yes, Cherry. What? He's what? Great Scott.
What's the matter, Ames? What is it? You're white as a sheet.
Dix. He's just been found shot to death in his room.
From San Francisco, the National Broadcasting Company is presenting Candy Matson, Yukon 28209.
Reginald Dix, well-known Hollywood director, shot dead in his hotel room. We were looking for developments. We got them, but not the kind we expected. Mallard led the way up to the suite that Dix had been occupying on the top floor. There was a mob around the door, and my boy Mallard soon dispersed them and instituted some semblance of order. Dix was sprawled out on the balcony overlooking the bay, and an ever-widening pool of blood showed that he'd been hit in the chest. Cherry Dana was pacing the room, smoking a cigarette. Ames stood in the middle with his jaw flapping. And who should be in the room, too, but my old pal from my days in Hollywood, Buff Arnold.
Candy Matson. What a place for a reunion.
Yes, isn't it? How are you, Buff?
Ill. Terribly ill. If I have to step into the other room, I hope you'll understand. Reg was a great friend of mine.
Sure. Sure, let's go in the bedroom. You look sort of green. Besides, I have a few questions I'd like to ask you, Buff.
It's a deal. Anything to get out of here. Let's go.
Wait a minute, Candy. Who is this guy?
Buff Arnold, Mallard, the fellow I was speaking about.
Where were you going?
In there, he doesn't feel too good. The closest he's ever been to blood is a bottle of ketchup and color.
Okay. Don't let him out of your sight. I have a flock of questions and need a flock of answers.
As you say, Mallard, dear.
And don't get carried away yourself.
This the bedroom?
Yeah.
Well, Buff, you seem to be doing all right.
A lot different than when I knew you in Hollywood, Candy.
You look swell, Buff. Too darn swell.
What do you mean?
You bring back too many memories.
You look mighty good yourself, Candy. You're no longer a plump little kid just out of high school. You're downright pretty, gal.
In the good old days, I'd have jumped through hoops to hear you say that.
Got any hoops handy? I'll say it again.
No soap.
Maybe we could revive some of those memories, Candy.
Not a chance, Buff boy. Things have changed. Hollywood and everyone in it, including you, are a part of a dim, sad past. And instead of just plain Buff, that's a rebuff.
Very cute. I haven't heard the gag pulled since yesterday.
Tell me, did you hear about the body that was found on Telegraph Hill this morning?
I sure did. Now, poor Reg. I told him this picture had a jinx on it before we left the studio. Little things that happened right from the start.
Like what?
Well, in the first place, I wasn't even supposed to be in the picture. They were going to give it to some new kid as a build-up. A week before the first day of shooting, he up and disappeared. He hasn't been heard from since. When they shoved me into the breach. Then the assistant director tripped and fell off a catwalk, broke both legs. He had to be replaced.
Anything else, Buff?
Yeah. About that time, Cherry Dana whipped herself into a batch of temperament and walked off the lot. Held up production a week. Then the luggage for San Francisco was rerouted somewhere else. Never has caught up with us. Now the body this morning and Dick's just now.
Certainly sounds like a jinx. By the way, how do you and the great Cherry get along, Buff?
Fine. I try not to see her except on the set. Come here, Candy. Just let me hold you in my arms once. Just once. I want the feel of someone who's truly genuine.
You're still just a little boy, aren't you, Buff?
Okay, Arnold, I'd like to, Well, pardon me. I hate to break this up, but I want to talk to you, Mr. Arnold.
That was a fine time Mallard picked to walk in. And then I got to thinking, maybe it was a fine time. He was due to have a little fire set under him. As I walked out into the other room, the boys in blue had arrived, and they were swarming all over the place. Ames was no longer present. Neither was Cherry Dana. I wasn't going to give Mallard the satisfaction of an explanation, so I eased out the door and went down to the lobby. I asked where Ames was staying and went back up to his room, 672. A knock on the door produced results.
Just a moment. Oh, Miss Matson. Something you wanted?
Yes, may I come in?
Why, yes. I was just lying down. This thing about Reg has knocked me for a complete loop.
It seems to be quite a shock to everybody. You've been with Reginald Dix for a long time, haven't you, Ames?
Well, off and on, yes. A good number of years.
How about La Dana?
Cherry? Well, I've known her extremely well, even before she became a top-flight star.
Can you give me any idea who might have had it in for Dix? If you can, you better spill. The truth will come out sooner or later, Ames. It always does in things of this sort.
I've only one little thing I can tell. I've already told it to your lieutenant friend.
Oh? And what's that?
As I got back from Telegraph Hill, I dropped by Reg's suite. Wanted to talk about tomorrow's shooting. As I drew near his door, I heard loud arguing.
Arguing? Who were the opponents?
Reg and Cherry Dana.
Mm-hmm. And what were they arguing about, Ames?
You?
So that's it. Tell me, is Cherry the kind of woman who would turn killer on an impulse?
It's hard to say. She has a terrible temper.
Mm-hmm. Does Buff Arnold fit into the picture in any way?
I don't know. He's a sly one, that Arnold. He plays his cards in strictly a commercial manner. He may fit into the picture. He and Reg were never too friendly.
I see. Oh, thanks, Amesy. I'll leave now, and you'd better lock your door. The way things are going, you might wake up to find yourself dead. I went up to Cherry Dana's suite, but I drew a blank there, no answer. So I went back to the scene of the murder, Dix's rooms on the top floor. Mallard was just leaving. He shot me a look that would have knocked out a North Korean tank at 1,000 yards and started to brush on by me, but I would have none of it. Now, just a moment, Boy Blue. Come on back to that over 21 level. Just because Buff had his arms around me is no sign we were playing a scene from Romeo and Juliet.
I don't think I've seen that close a grip even in professional wrestling.
Oh, cut it out. What'd you turn up in there? Anything at all?
No, not a thing. Can't even find the murder weapon.
Got any ideas?
Lots of them. We've already taken Miss Dana into custody.
I had a hunch it was leading in that direction.
Incidentally, did you ever hear of a Christopher Seema? He's been a bookie around town here for several years.
Christopher Seema? No, can't say I have. Why?
He was the boy who was hanging from the tree. Oh. According to our files, he dabbled in everything from gambling to blackmail.
Seema, that name rings bells somehow, Mallard.
One other thing. This isn't personal, you understand?
Yeah.
But stay away from Buff Arnold. We've got our eye on him, too.
Little things were suddenly clicking way back in my mind, awfully vague, but the old processes from years before were coming to life ever so slowly. Mallard had work to do, plenty of it, down at the Hall of Justice, work in which I was included out. I went outside on California Street, watched him get into a squad car with two of his men, and I waved him a goodbye. That was when I had another idea. Dix's suite. Cops were through with it. The body'd been removed. But I had a hunch that was the key to the situation. Knowing the manager of the Montfair, it was no trouble at all to get a key to Reg's suite, and that's where I headed, up to the top floor. I let myself into the darkened room, closed the door behind me. With the lights of the city way below seeping through the balcony window, I found a place in back of the settee and sat down to wait and think. The balcony window being opened, the roar of the city traffic underneath came gently through and helped my thinking. And that's when it hit me. Seema. Several years before I had served my term in Hollywood, there was an actress named Vivian Seema. The same face as that of Cherry Dana. Now the clouds were beginning to lift, and at the same time the door opened in the suite and the silhouetted figure of a man entered the room.
Blast the luck.
Okay, Buff. Relax.
What?
This is Candy. Come on over here by the settee. Hurry, I'm expecting company.
What are you doing here, Candy?
You've got the wrong page of the script. That's my line. What are you doing here, Buff?
Honestly, you've got to believe me. I left my lighter here this afternoon. I was afraid the police would find it. Naturally, I can't afford any bad publicity. It'll ruin my career.
I believe you, Buff. You always were fond of that career, weren't you? Don't answer, just keep quiet.
What's up?
A guy named Seema, if I'm right. Nuisance. Reginald Dix didn't like him. Wait a minute. I think I hear someone coming along the hall. The door slowly opened and closed again. The dim light from the hall showed the form of another man. Then the dark figure moved slowly but surely across the room. It stopped for a second or two, as though listening for something. Then moved again to the balcony, out onto the balcony, and whoever it was grabbed the ledge above, hoisted his feet up onto the iron grillwork, and hung over the city. That's when I acted. Okay, Ames, stay right where you are, in that position.
What? You think I'm a fool? Candy's out on that ledge. He's ducked around the outside on that ledge.
I'm a fool. Quick, Buff, go down the hall and get out on the fire escape. Cut him off.
Okay, what are you going to do?
Go out on that ledge after him. You better come back, Ames. You're cut off at both ends.
Oh, no, I'm not. Not with this gun I've got.
That's the same gun you killed Dix with, isn't it? Very clever hiding it up on this ledge out here. No wonder Mallard and his boys didn't find it. Look out there on the city, Ames. one misstep and you go off into space. Think it over. You better come back.
Not on your life.
I'm coming after you.
I'm down the other end, Candy.
Good. Now we've got him.
Yes, you have. Obviously, this is the end. Perhaps you don't know what it is to love. Perhaps you don't know what it is to be scorned. I do, painfully so. This is the end, but I'm not going to go alone. You're going with me, Miss Matson, like this.
No, the recoil. It'll knock you right out of the neck.
Oh!
So it was just a matter of jealousy. Is that right, Candy?
That's right, Mallard, dear. The same thing you developed when you walked in on Buff Arnold and me.
Okay, so I was burned up. Tell me more.
It was the name Seema that did it, Mallard. Do you know what that is?
All right, I'll play quizzies with you. What's the name Seema?
Seema is Ames, spelled backwards.
Oh.
You see, that was Ames's real name. At one time, he had married Cherry Dana under the name of Seema. When she began to be big in pictures, she divorced him, but he carried the eternal torch.
Silly, she wasn't worth it.
Of course not. Because she collected men. Reginald Dix, not because she loved him, but because she was fading in pictures and because Dix was the only one who could keep her in front of the public.
Logical. But what about the Seema hung up in the tree on Telegraph Hill?
There we have the plot. The Seema up in the tree was Ames's brother, a ne'er-do-well. The night that Ames arrived in town here, he looked up his brother, got a bit tight, and told him what he'd done. Caused the original leading man to disappear, shoved the original assistant director off a platform, breaking his legs. In general, did everything he could to sabotage the picture. Then he pulled the strings to get himself named as assistant director so he could be near Cherry.
Love and jealousy.
Mallard, I'll get to that in time. Cherry had vaguely promised that she'd remarry Ames. But when he saw his own brother was going to blackmail him, he went crazy. That's when he strung him up with the dummies in the trees. From there, it was just a step to knock off Reginald Dix and have a clear track for himself.
I'll go back to what I said to begin with. Why did these characters from Hollywood have to come up here to San Francisco and louse up our scenery, as well as our police department?
Oh, to heck with your police department. That's the last time I'm going to climb around a ledge hundreds of feet in the air.
Not so strange. Buff Arnold was out on that ledge, too, wasn't he?
Oh, Mallard, sometimes you make me so... That reminds me, I have a date tomorrow night.
Sure, with Buff Arnold.
No, that's tomorrow morning. I'm driving him down to the railroad station. Date for tomorrow night? With you, Mallard, dear. We're going to see a Roy Acuff movie.
Oh, Candy. Roy Acuff. Monarch of all the cowboys.
Yeah, monarch of all the cowboys. I'll see him with you. And if that isn't love, I don't know what is.
Listen again next week at this same time. For excitement and adventure, just dial...
Candy Matson, Yukon 28209.
Heard tonight were Hal Burdick as Reginald Dix, John Grober as Ames, the assistant director, Mary Milford as Cherry Dana, Kurt Martell as Buff Arnold, and included in the cast was Ken Langley. Henry Leff plays the part of Lieutenant Ray Mallard. The program stars Natalie Masters as Candy and is written and directed by Monty Masters. Sound effects are created by Bill Brownell, and Eloise Rowan is heard at the organ. The characters in tonight's play were entirely fictitious. Any resemblance to actual people is purely coincidental. Tonight's engineer was Clarence Stevens. The program came to you from San Francisco. Dudley Manlove speaking. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company.
Hello, Yukon 38309. Yes, this is Candy Matson. Yes, Yes, this is Candy Matson.
Oh, Miss Matson, I've been trying to get in touch with you the past 2 days.
Well, I've been out of town. Just who is this speaking?
Mrs. Allison Gray. You may have heard of my husband.
The famous industrialist? Who hasn't heard of him?
You've got to help me, Miss Matson. I'm desperate.
Well, you sound it. What seems to be wrong, Mrs. Gray?
I understand you do work of a confidential nature.
You understand correctly.
Can you drop out to see me, Miss Matson? Right away.
Well, you'll have to give me some idea of what it's all about, Mrs. Gray. There are certain types of cases I refuse to accept.
Do I have to tell you on the phone?
If we're going to do business, yes.
Well, it's my husband. For the past month, I felt that he's been gradually losing his mind.
What?
It's horrible. But yesterday, he disappeared completely.
You don't have to say another word, Mrs. Gray. I'll be right out.
The National Broadcasting Company presents Candy Matson, Yukon 38309.
That's the way it usually goes. I live in a penthouse on Telegraph Hill in San Francisco. Inside, there's a phone. It's listed and it rings. Sometimes I wish it wasn't and didn't. But the phone is listed thusly: Candy Matson, private investigator. And that's how I make my living. Do you remember that old gag about what's black and white and red all over? Yeah, a newspaper. Well, because of that telephone call from Mrs. Allison Gray, I had a switch. I had my palm red and got black and blue all over. And for good measure, I uncovered 2 very dead corpses along the way. I got the address of the Allison Grays out on Broadway in the Valley of Wealth, and that's where I went. As I pulled up at the front door, I looked for the bell, but there was none. Nothing but a huge knocker looking like it weighed about 10 tons. I whacked it a couple of times and thought the house would fall off its foundations.
Oui, mademoiselle?
Oh, oui. Je suis ici pour un rendezvous avec Madame Gray.
Oh, parlez-vous français, mademoiselle?
Oui, Lowell High School style.
Entrez, s'il vous plaît, mademoiselle.
Oui.
C'est un bon jour, n'est-ce pas?
Oh, oui. I'll bet you run out before I do.
You can say that again.
Oh, you speak English?
Yeah, San Francisco style. You Miss Matson?
That's right.
Miss Gray's expecting you. You'll find her in the library.
Don't overdo it, Clyde. Say, what kind of a place is this anyway?
You'll find out. Right on in, please.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, Miss Matson?
Yes, Mrs. Gray.
Do come in. My, how attractive you are. I expected a severe type of woman. Sit down, won't you, please?
Well, thank you.
You've got to help me, Miss Matson. My whole life has been turned into a phantasmagoria.
Oh, it's a good word. Tell me more about the phantasmagoria.
My husband and I have been married 30 years. All that time he's been kind, considerate, generous.
And with money yet. That makes him quite a man.
But in business, he's just the opposite. He's ruthless. And I'm afraid he's made a good many enemies.
Well, I guess you have to be like that in business if you want to be successful, Mrs. Gray.
I know of at least a half-dozen men who have been led into financial ruin because of my husband's operations.
And this all leads to...
Just this. I believe that his business tactics finally began to prey on his mind. For the past month, he's looked as though he were suffering from shock or concussion.
Well, maybe that's it.
No, Miss Matson. I was a nurse before I married Mr. Gray. I know the symptoms. My husband, I'm sure, is on the edge of a complete mental collapse. If it hasn't happened already.
Well, just how do I fit into the picture?
Find him, please. Then perhaps we can get to the root of all the trouble. I'd die if anything happened to him.
You should know his habits. Can't you find him, Mrs. Gray?
Can an amateur pianist do the work of a Rubinstein? No, Miss Matson. You're a professional sleuth. That's why I called you.
Okay. You've got yourself a girl. As of now, I'm on the payroll.
What is your fee, Miss Matson?
$200 in advance, $50 a day in expenses.
That's reasonable. I'll make out a check for you right away.
Fine.
Oh, hello, Auntie. Excuse me. Didn't know you had company.
Perfectly all right, Robert. May I present my nephew, Robert Warnicki. This is Miss Candy Matson.
How do you do?
Delighted to know you. Matson, eh? That name is familiar. Yes, you're a lady reporter or something of the sort, aren't you?
No, I'm afraid not, Mr. Warnicki.
Let the girl alone, Robert. She's here on business. Here you are, Miss Matson.
Thank you, Mrs. Gray. Well, I'd better be getting along. You'll hear from me soon. Oh, goodbye, Mr. Warnicki. I'll be seeing you.
Yes, I have a hunch you most certainly will.
I left the house, got in my car, and as I drove along, I did some thinking. It was a strange thing. Here was a family with all the loot in the world, but unhappy. It didn't make sense. Suddenly I realized I wasn't far from the studios of an old friend of mine, Rembrandt Watson, a darn good photographer, now that he's given up the grape, the kind that comes in bottles. As luck would have it, he was in and gave me a greeting worthy of the prodigal son.
Candy, you minx. Where on earth have you been, Dove?
Minx and Dove? You make me feel as if I should be molting. What do you mean, where have I been?
Just what the question implies, dear. Where have you been?
Up in Eureka on a case.
Oh, and how did you find Eureka?
With radar. You've never seen such fog.
Oh.
Well, why this deep concern about me whereabouts?
I've been trying to get in touch with you. I've some business for you, dear.
No, thanks, Rembrandt. I already have some.
Oh, she's an old customer of mine. I photographed her so often, I know every little wrinkle. I've even given them names.
No, I've told you, Ducky, I couldn't possibly
Her neck has more lines than a California road map.
Rembrandt, for the last time,
Her name is Gray.
What did you say her name was?
Gray, sweet little old fluff, lives out on Broadway.
Mrs. Allison Gray?
Yes, that's the one.
Well, Rembrandt, I just now left her house not more than 10 minutes ago.
Oh, splendid. She got in touch with you. She dropped in my studio several days ago, and I recommended you. Get yourself a fine fat feed, Dove. She can afford it.
Well, do you know anything about the deal?
Only that she's worried about her husband.
That's nothing. I'm worried about mine.
Oh, girl, you're not married.
That's why I'm worried.
You mean you still can't get Lieutenant Mallard to see the light?
Right. Every time we even get near the subject of matrimony, Mallard ducks. Mallard ducks. Okay, I'll leave.
I would if I were you. Mallard ducks. Really? Well, did you accept the case?
I'm afraid I did, Rembrandt.
Then you might be interested in this. Here.
What's this?
A card. You can read.
Yeah. Madame Natasha, palmistry, telepathy, sittings by appointment only. What's this all about?
May not have any connection in the least, but it fell out of Mrs. Gray's purse as she left the other afternoon.
Palmistry yet? This gal goes in for wrinkles all over. Rembrandt may sound as though he has bird gravel for brains, but he's been around me long enough to know a lead when he sees one. So I took the card and left. I cut over to Union and down to Kearny Street and then to the Hall of Justice on the corner of Washington. That's where my boy Mallard hangs his hat. Lieutenant Ray Mallard of San Francisco Homicide. A wonderful guy if he'd only swap stars. The one pinned on the inside of his coat for the ones up in the sky.
Well, bust my rank and call me patrolman if it isn't Candy. Hi, you beautiful thing, you.
Well, what have you been doing? Sniffing too much sulfur and molasses?
Oh, merely stating the truth. Gee, you look swell, Candy.
Well, in that case, no comment. I'd better quit while I'm ahead. Well, Foot Flat, what's new?
Nothing, absolutely nothing. I'm liable to lose my job. In the last 24 hours, there's been only one crime reported. Some kid had his bike stolen.
Oh, you can talk to me, Mallard. Was it an inside job?
I don't know. We haven't got anything to go on. But give us another 2 days and we'll bust this bike heist wide open.
Good for you, laddie boy. Now shift your cigar and listen to me.
Okay. Got something?
Well, not yet, but could be. Ever hear of a lady swami known as Madame Natasha? Crystal gazing done cheap?
What does she make like Conan Doyle?
Out on Buchanan near Jackson.
You know her real name?
Nope.
Well, I can't help you then. As long as they keep the crystal gazing down to a soft stare and a low murmur, we don't bother them.
Just thought I'd ask. Know anything about an Allison Gray?
Allison Gray, sure. Charming character. Whole department knows about him. There's nothing we can do about it.
So?
Yeah, so. The biggest crook this side of Jesse James. Jesse did it with a gun. This joker does it with pen and ink. Oh, all very neat and orderly. Can't get a thing on him.
A happy chappy, eh?
Very happy. He's got more guys who hate his... He's very unpopular.
Sure.
Nobody likes him.
Well, his wife does. She loves him.
Well, that's what wives are for.
That's what I keep telling you.
Now, how did I walk into that one?
Mallard picked up a sheaf of papers and threw it at me. It seems I had scored a point. I ducked out, got in my car, and drove up the hill to my place. I had some phoning to do, and I wanted to do it fast. 3, 8, 6, 2. Get in.
The stars in their firmaments are all masterful. Good afternoon. Madame Natasha speaking.
Good afternoon, Madame. I'm calling for an appointment.
Oh? You were recommended to Madame Natasha?
Oh, yes. I'm from New York. A friend of mine was here last summer. She said you were excellent.
Oh, how nice of her. And what was your friend's name?
Wallace. Mrs. Jennifer Wallace.
I do not seem to recall the name of Wallace. Oh, well. And you are?
Betsy Ross.
Ross. Very well. I can give you a sitting at 9 o'clock this evening, Miss Ross.
Oh, and I'd like to bring a friend along, if I might. A Mr. Turner.
That's a bit out of the ordinary, Miss Ross, but the stars decree. Very well. I will see you both.
That was number 1 call out of the way. Number 2 call was to Rembrandt. He was going to be my Mr. Turner. He's very sharp where photography is concerned, and I wanted him along in case of tricks. He said yes, he'd always wanted his palm bread. So I told him I'd pick him up about 8:30. Then I showered, fixed dinner, and got into an outfit that made me look as mousy as possible. With no lipstick or makeup, and with a pull-down hat and a dumpy old gown, I achieved the desired effect. Then I got into the car and went over to Rembrandt's place.
I beg your... No subscriptions, thank you. I'm not sending any more boys through Oh, you're a woman, I think.
I'm not only a woman, Rembrandt, I'm Candy.
Heaven preserve us. Did someone throw acid on you or something?
This is my costume.
Halloween isn't until next month, Candy.
I know, but the spooks are here. We're going to see them this evening.
Perhaps so, but the way you look is just a matter of who scares whom. Candy, you look hideous.
Well, good. That's just the way I want it.
What's the idea, Dove? I don't get it.
Some of these so-called fortune tellers are real smart cookies, Rembrandt. For obvious reasons, I don't want this gal we're going to visit to know who I am.
Rest assured she won't. Not the way you look.
Am I that convincing, Ducky?
My dear, if I didn't know better, I'd swear you just stepped off a pickle boat.
Fine. That's what I wanted to hear. Come on, Rembrandt. It's time for us to peek into our futures. We got in the car and drove out to Madame Natasha's place on Buchanan Street. It was one of those old 3-story gingerbread houses that still stand in San Francisco. Cornices, gables, carved pillars, ornate handrails leading up the front steps, etc. and etc. I rang the doorbell on the darkened porch and expected to be greeted by Peter Lorre. I wasn't far wrong. Oh.
Good evening. Madame Natasha bids you enter the Temple of the Zodiac.
Yes.
And you are?
Miss Ross, and this is Mr. Turner.
Ah, yes. Madame is expecting you.
Good.
Just follow me if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are. This room here. You may be seated, please.
Thank you.
A few brief words of instruction. Madame will be here shortly. At first, do not speak to her. She has been in touch with the outer world in preparation for your visit. She is on a highly sensitive mental plane. The least little noise will cause her great harm. You will remain where you are. Madame will sit at that table over there. She will address you. Once having done so, you may talk to her in low tones, please. Is this clear?
Yes.
Very well. I shall leave you alone. Remember, let Madame Natasha speak first.
Smells like a mortuary.
Part of the act, Rembrandt. The aroma of flowers all ties in with the supernatural.
I can't understand why we're here, Candy.
Well, I've got to start somewhere, Rembrandt. This was the only thing I had to go on.
Look, dear. There's a light beginning to fade up on the door. Where's it come from?
Oh, I don't know. It's a cute trick, you know that? Oh, better be quiet. I think this is the Madame's entrance cue. Yeah, here she comes.
You are gathered on the threshold of 3 powerful forces. The past, the present, the future. Prepare to travel with me through these 3 elements. The lady's name is Ross. The gentleman's Turner. That is right, is it not? You may speak.
That is correct.
Yes.
We shall commence. Detach yourselves think of nothing but the past. Your childhood, your school days, vacations, your misfortunes, your happy hours, your parents. Think. Yes, our thought planes are beginning to meet. Music, stars and music, they guide our lives. Yes, we are meeting.
Look up there, Candy, on the wall, the face of a man.
Someone is about to visit us. Do you feel the presence?
Yes, I do.
I seem to feel it's a relative of yours. Your father, perhaps?
No, it's my Uncle Bart. He used to take me boating.
Yes, Uncle Bart. Now I know.
My word, this is better than old movies.
Fool.
What did you say?
Why, your friend here, he is a scoffer. I cannot go on. I am in terrible mental pain. Please, you must leave now. Immediately.
The National Broadcasting Company is presenting Candy Matson, Yukon 38309.
It wasn't Rembrandt who had broken the spell. It was that scream and the anguished cry from the other room that did the trick. I would have given my eye teeth to do some snooping, but the lad who showed us in did a very firm reverse and made sure we took a straight line for the front door and out. I heard the lock click behind us, and that was it. We went across the street, got in the car, and took off. The fog was so thick you couldn't see 20 feet in any direction.
Why are you biting your lower lip, Dove? Are you put out with me for being a scoffer?
No, not at you, Rembrandt, but I am put out. That babe's as phony as a $3 bill.
Yes, you and your Uncle Bart, who used to take you boating. Huh, indeed.
That scream and the voice, that's what did it.
Very good, I thought. Sounded almost real.
Oh, it was real, Ducky. Didn't you notice how excited the madame was?
By Jove. I thought you came out of a trance awfully fast.
And what about the vision of dear old Uncle Bart?
Oh, that was rear view projection, girl. Shot through some very fine cheesecloth to give it a slight distortion.
Well, okay. I'm making another appointment with the madame for tomorrow night. I want to see what's going on behind the scenes.
Where are you going now, Candy?
Home and to bed. I'm tired.
Then let me out on Van Ness Avenue, will you? I'm dickering with a man for a used car.
Oh, well, I'll take you there. What's the place?
Diogenes Anderson, the swapping Swede.
Rembrandt got out at the used car lot, and I went home and had a good night's sleep. I wanted to have all my buttons because there were a lot of angles that needed angling. I woke in the morning feeling quite fresh and ready for come what may. First thing to come what may was another drive out to the Valley of Wealth to check in with Mrs. Allison Gray. The door opened, but it wasn't Mrs. Gray. It was her nephew, Robert Warnicki.
Oh, Miss Matson. Come in, won't you? I'm so sorry, but it's the butler's day off.
Oh, what a shame having to strain yourself on that heavy door. Thank you.
Yeah. I imagine you want to see my aunt, huh?
Yes, you imagine correctly. Is she in?
No. She left about half an hour ago. Said something about having to see about her hair.
Oh, where'd she leave it?
Oh, very clever, Miss Matson.
What about your uncle, Mr. Gray? Is he here?
Oh. Aren't you the one who's supposed to know where my uncle is?
What do you mean by that?
To repeat, you're very clever, Miss Matson. I have an apology to make to you.
Oh?
Yes, you're not a reporter at all. My aunt corrected my mistake. You're a private detective person.
So who's denying it?
You know, you're very attractive, Miss Matson. I think I shall kiss you.
You what?
I've never kissed a detective.
Oh. Why, you clown. Tell your aunt that'll cost her another $100. I was so mad I boiled over and out the door. I think I drove all the way home and low at 40 miles an hour. I dashed up the stairs in my penthouse and scrubbed my face 3 times. Then I got to thinking how the character looked after he'd kissed me. Lipstick all over his mouth, and I started to laugh. And I stopped laughing. It may have been the most nauseating kiss that man ever bestowed on maid, but certainly stopped me cold. I went over to the phone and called Madame Natasha's Temple of the Zodiac. Come on, answer.
The stars in the firmament are all masterful. Good afternoon.
Is Madame Natasha there?
No. Madame is resting.
Oh, well, would it be possible to make an appointment for this evening?
This evening? Have you been recommended by someone?
Yes, Miss Ruth Burdett.
Burdett? Burdett?
Yes.
Madame Natasha doesn't seem to have a Burdett in the file.
Oh, she must. Miss Burdett was there only a few weeks ago.
Well, very well. Madame Natasha will see you at 10 o'clock.
That's perfect.
And your name, please?
Taylor. Geary Ann Taylor. Things were beginning to roll now, and I think I saw the light. And if I was proven to be right, the light wasn't very pleasant. This time I didn't go as the mousy little character. I went as myself. I got in the car and drove out to the Temple of the Zodiac. If it had been dark the night before, it was even darker now, and I couldn't help shivering a bit. I checked my purse. There it was, my little .32, and I felt better. Then I walked up the steps, rang, was shown in by the same gent. He didn't bat an eye, so I knew I wasn't recognized. I went through the same briefing instructions about not talking to the madame until she spoke first and so forth, and the man left. After a moment or two, so did I. Down the hall. Then I found the staircase and rambled up in the semi-darkness. There were 3 rooms on the second floor, none of them disclosing a thing. Besides, the agonized voice that had cried out, "No, no, please don't," seemed to have come from further off. So on up another flight to the 3rd floor. I opened the first door. Nothing. Then kitty corner and another door. Still nothing. But on the 3rd door... I could see them in the darkness. 2 bodies piled side by side. I went over and lit a match. And there they were. The bodies of Mrs. Allison Gray and that of what obviously must have been her husband, Mr. Gray. Very cold and very dead.
You seem to have found something, Miss Taylor.
Yeah. They look quite natural, don't they?
Madame Natasha is here. She is highly displeased with you.
Yeah, I'll bet. Hiya, madame.
Miss Taylor seems to be the curious type.
You're out of character, Mr. Warnicki. You'd look better without that wig.
I said you were clever, Miss Matson. Too clever. Quick, Walter, get her.
Oh, no, you don't.
Oh, mister, you fool. Shoot again.
Candy!
Oh, for Pete's sake, Rembrandt.
Are you all right?
I'm okay. Bullet in the arm, that's all. Where on earth did you come from?
We were in the room across the hall downstairs when we saw you pussyfooting by, so we followed.
We?
Yes, we. Diogenes Anderson and I.
The swapping Swede? What were you two doing out here?
Candy girl, how naive you are at times. You told me you were coming back here tonight. You didn't include me in your plan, so that meant you were coming alone. Knowing your propensity for getting into trouble, I felt it incumbent upon me to enlist the aid of my friend Diogenes and come to your assistance.
Well, bully for you, Rembrandt. I'm glad you did. What did you fellows do to these rats?
As we followed you up the stairs, we implemented ourselves with 2 sturdy chairs. Then it happened. They fired, you dashed past us. When those 2 beggars came abreast of us, we merely lowered the boom. Diogenes on one side, I on the other. Oh, my word, we really tagged them, I fear.
Well, I wouldn't worry about it. They've been working overtime. They can use a little deep sleep.
Look, Candy, 2 bodies. Tell me about it.
Well, it's very simple, Mallard, dear. This nephew of Mrs. Gray's at one time had been a ham, a female impersonator in vaudeville. So last year he decided to try to convince his uncle, Mr. Allison Gray, that his days were shortening, that he should atone for his wicked life.
And how'd he go about that?
By telling his uncle he should visit a fortune teller.
And by a very strange coincidence, the fortune teller is a nephew, Robert Warnick.
That's right, the impersonator. The same telling his uncle, and I quote, that he should give all his money away to charities before he died.
Yeah, and the uncle went for the gag?
Sure. Did you ever know a man like that who didn't want to repent before passing out? It was a cinch. But all the charities were phonies, and all the checks came right back to Robert Warnick.
Well, I don't see why Warnick had to go so far as to bump off his uncle and aunt. Did they catch wise to this racket?
Well, that's it exactly, Miller. He was in so deep that he might just as well go all the way and eliminate him.
I see.
You see, the uncle, in the first blush of being a grade A philanthropist, never questioned the charities which Warnick suggested.
Yeah, that makes sense.
About a month ago, he started wondering and snooping, and he found out there were no charities. He was like a wild man. That's what made Mrs. Gray think her husband was losing his mind.
Well, if I unloaded that much money through a swindle, I'd have acted crazy, too.
Yeah, I'll bet. Well, the uncle started following Warnicke's movements. Just as he discovered that Warnicke was also Madame Natasha, Warnicke caught wise that his uncle had caught wise. He forced him into the old house on Buchanan.
Mm-hmm.
Now he was frightened. He didn't know how much his aunt knew. So he went back to the Gray's place, told his aunt that he had a tip as to where his uncle was. Naturally, she went along with him. She was still up in the room with her dead husband the first night Rembrandt and I went out there. It was her voice I heard crying, "No, please don't." She'd heard our voices downstairs and tried to make a break. Warnicke's goon boy grabbed her just in time, and after we left, they did away with her, too.
A very unpretty mess.
Yeah.
How did you first tip to Warnicke, Candy?
When he kissed me.
When he kissed? Wait, what?
Sure he kissed me. I appealed to some men. When I got home, I remembered the way he looked with my lipstick on his mouth. All I had to do was mentally put a wig on the joker, and voila, Madame Natasha.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. Aren't you going to kiss me goodnight?
What, and turn into a fortune teller?
Why, you cad.
Come here, cupcake. What's the matter with you?
Good night, Madame Mallard. Well, take a look in the mirror, and then get yourself a crystal ball, and you're in business.
What?
Heard tonight were Helen Kleeb as Mrs. Gray, Kurt Martell as the butler, and Earl Lee as Madame Natasha's assistant. Tony Barrett played the dual role of Warnicke and Madame Natasha. Tudor Owen was Rembrandt Watson, and Whitfield Connor was heard as Lieutenant Ray Mallard. The program stars Natalie Masters as Candy and is directed by Monty Masters. The characters in tonight's story were entirely fictitious. Any resemblance to actual people is purely coincidental. And don't forget...
For excitement, fun, and laughs, just dial Candy Matson, Yukon 38309.
Hal Gibney speaking. This has been a presentation of the NBC Program Department in Hollywood.